You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sara J Loureiro.
Welcome to another episode of the Uplevel Your Online Business Show with me, Sara. I have decided to do the next few episodes based off of some recent client suggestions. So my clients know who they are, and I hope that you really like this episode. I think that this is going to be a really, really great episode actually for anyone in business because we all go through this. And I just can't begin to tell you how common the messy middle truly is, especially when you are just starting to implement something new in business. And so I think it's a common misconception that only complete newbies really feel like nothing is working. And what I want to say as we start this episode is that it's so common to experience this. I think the only difference between a newbie and someone who's been at it for a while is when you're at it for a while, you recognize it for what it is versus if you're new, you don't. And one thing that I really, really survived off of when I was just starting out in business, and even as I was growing for the first few years, was hearing from people who had been where I had been and hearing from them and normalizing the feelings and the emotions that were going on for me when I felt like nothing was working. It was really listening to podcast episodes like this that made me continue to move and not want to give up. So I totally understand how things like this can be so effective for your growth. So this is for all of you, whether you are completely new to business or you're doing something for the first time and it is terrifying you. So how to survive the messy middle. Let's talk about it. And let's also talk about how to know if you're in the messy middle or if you're just doing something that doesn't work. And let me start this off by saying there are so many people that you can speak to about your business, and the vast majority of those people will not be able to give you sound advice. And I think that one of the most disheartening things that I see happening to people who are in businesses is they will go through this messy middle, and instead of asking a coach or instead of listening to a podcast or instead of reading a book that's based off of successful entrepreneurs, they'll go out and they'll start talking to their friends about it, or they'll start talking to other entrepreneurs who've also felt like failures about it. And it's really unfortunate because what ends up happening is all of those people just get stuck in this spiral of oh yeah, nothing works. Because if you ask someone who's never owned a business before, or if you start talking to someone who's never owned a business before and doesn't really care to own a business, and you start telling them all of the negative things that have happened to your business, chances are that person's going to be like, oh yeah, none of that is working. Because in entrepreneurship, the vast majority of the things that you do don't work, or they don't work the way that you really want them to work. And most successful entrepreneurs know this. We all know this like the back of our hands, right? And so this is why it's so important to hire a mentor and also listen to your mentor when you're like, okay, none of this is working. If your mentor is just like, no, you just have to continue to give it a go. One of the worst things that you can do is just be like, yeah, no, none of it is working. I'm just going to turn it all off. And I think, unfortunately, that's something that I do see happening to people is they turn it all off. They get involved with the wrong people. They have people who are starting to tell them, no, that stuff that you're doing doesn't work. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the next thing you know, you don't have a business anymore. You've lost all your momentum. And one of the reasons for that is because you couldn't hang tight within that messy middle, and you didn't really follow things long enough in order to see the fruits of your labor. So that's one of the first things, is just acknowledging that point, and also just acknowledging that if you are in victim mode, you can't be in empowerment mode at the same time. It's just impossible. You can't be a victim and be empowered at the exact same time. And so once you lose your empowerment and once you slip yourself into victim mode, it's it. You're done. You're completely done. And it's so unfortunate, once again, because I feel like there's so many people who just kind of slip into that and they go into that without really staying the course. But the people who are really successful know how to stay the course. They know how to take responsibility for their own actions, and they know how to keep going. And I think that that is such a great and important trait of an entrepreneur. Some people just don't have it, and that's okay. But if you're listening to this and if you want to succeed, those are very, very important things. 1, don't get yourself into victim mode. 2, understand what a messy middle is and understand that everyone goes through it. And 3, be very careful who you speak to. Because if you're going to speak to someone negative, if you're going to speak to someone who has no experience, you're going to quit before you can actually start seeing the fruits to your labor. And you don't want that. No one wants that. Okay? So how do we survive this? How do we overcome the messy middle? And what's the difference between a messy middle and something that just really does not work? And sometimes it's a little bit hard to know the difference. So, how do we survive the messy middle? When you can understand that it's something that everyone goes through and it's not just a you problem, that's how you survive the messy middle. You acknowledge the fact that it's really hard, but at the same time, you also acknowledge the fact that if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And one thing that I really love to show my clients is one of the things that we all want is the fruit off of our tree, right? The fruit is the cash. The fruit is the clients. It's usually the money. In business, the fruit is the money, but it's also the last thing to grow on your tree. And so a part of being in the messy middle is acknowledging how much your tree has grown. And I hear things all the time like, well, I haven't gotten any new followers, or my post got 0 engagement. I will always ask my clients to define what 0 new followers and 0 new engagement means. And usually they're like, well, I only got 5 followers, or I only got 500 views, let's say, for example. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not 0, right? So that's black and white thinking that we need to get rid of. And so what we do when we don't acknowledge the things that are happening is we're not acknowledging the branches on our tree. We're not acknowledging the leaves that are growing on our tree. All we're saying is, I don't have fruit. And if I don't have fruit, it's not working. And I can't stress this enough. That's a loser's mentality. Okay? That's a loser's mentality. When you cannot look at your tree and look at all of the beautiful things on it, and you just say, there's no fruit, therefore none of it worked, you lost. Okay? This is kind of like saying, okay, well, I did this entire half marathon and I didn't get to the finish line. So everything that I did for this half marathon or marathon, it didn't count. All of the running that I did up until this point didn't count because I didn't get to the finish line. Okay? That's a lie. We're lying to ourselves when we say that. Instead, what we want to do is we want to acknowledge everything that we've done. We want to acknowledge all of the branches on our trees. We want to acknowledge the leaves, maybe even the beautiful flowers, maybe even the roots that we got on our tree, right? And the reason why we want to do this is because, let's say, for example, if we don't have any, or if it's not growing fast enough, maybe we need to put more water. Maybe we need to give it more sunlight. But if we're not acknowledging all of the things that have happened, we're not giving ourselves enough credit for all of our achievements. So how do we now understand the difference between being in the messy middle and just having something that isn't working? Like, no matter how much we try, it's just not working. And it's a little bit of a trick question that I'm posing here because the answer is still so similar. And I think that this is, once again, something that really seasoned entrepreneurs understand. And I think that if you want to be very successful as an entrepreneur, you also need to understand this. And unfortunately, I think I see a lot of people quitting before they understand these concepts. And so let's say, for example, you pay a Facebook ad agency and you pay them $10,000. Okay? And I've actually seen this happening before. You pay them 10 grand and they also spend another 10 grand of your money. Not kidding. This has totally happened to people before. And so 20 grand goes by and you don't have a single lead coming in through those Facebook ads. That could be a pretty good sign that those ads are not working for you, right? You spent 10 grand on the agency and then you spent another $10,000 on your ad spend and you didn't get a single lead come out of that, or you didn't get a single client come out of that. I mean, it sucks, right? Like that's, like those are the really horrible moments in business where you're like, that investment did not go as planned. However, I would also want to point out here, and I think that once again, this is so important, is we can take a look at that and we can be like, yep, $20,000 down the drain. Or we can say, what did I learn from this experience? And what did these ads bring me? So let's say, for example, if you didn't actually get a lead, you didn't get a client, then what did you get? Did you get email subscribers? Did you get new followers? And why didn't it work? And I think that this is one of the biggest things that we need to come to terms with as entrepreneurs is there's a lot of very black and white thinking that people can have, especially when you're just starting out, and it is very detrimental to your success. And instead of having black and white thinking, which is basically, spent all this money on these Facebook ads and they didn't work, instead of having that black and white thinking, what's so much more beneficial is saying, okay, well, what did this give me? And what area of this funnel didn't seem to work? And so this is one of the reasons too why I prefer learning things myself first, hiring mentors who teach me ads first before I hire done-for-you agencies to do things, because then I understand what they're doing and I can understand whether or not they're doing a really good job. But when you can understand what is going on in one of your funnels, or if you hire a mentor to help you understand what is going on in your funnels, it's never the case that the entire funnel didn't work. And I'm going to say that again. It is never the case that your entire funnel didn't work. It's usually the case that one part of your funnel didn't work. And so this is why mentorship, and especially business mentorship, can get so expensive, or it could be such a valuable investment, should I say, because you're not necessarily paying the person just for the hours that they're working. You're paying the person to understand what part of the funnel is working and what part of the funnel is not working. And so there could be such a myriad of different reasons why you didn't get the profit that you wanted. But generally speaking, it's either a problem with, the top of your funnel, which is your actual ad, or the bottom of your funnel, which is sometimes your offer. Right? Sometimes it's not working because your offer isn't good enough. Sometimes it's not working because your ad isn't good enough. Sometimes it's not working because your sales process isn't good enough. And so it's not working. Yes, it's not giving you the fruit in the specific amount of time that you wanted that fruit. However, it's not because you don't have the tree. You've got the tree going. You just need to figure out why the tree isn't giving you your fruit. And that's how to tell the difference between either you're being in the messy middle and you just need to give it more time, or something genuinely isn't working. But when things genuinely aren't working, the worst thing that we can do is just throw in the towel and blame someone, blame the ad agency. This didn't work, they're a waste of money. Or, blame your friend for telling you, you referred me to the service. Or blame your coach. That's the worst thing that you can do. Blame. Become in, or get yourself into victim mode. Because once again, now you're disempowered. If you get yourself into blame mode, you're now disempowered. Ask yourself, what can you learn from this experience instead? And ask your mentor. Ask the person who you hired, or give yourself an audit and try to see what part of this wasn't working for me. And sometimes I think the really interesting part of business is your strategy could be working, but it might not be in alignment with you. It might not be the strategy that you want. It might not be the offer that you want. Because it's not in alignment with you, you're pushing it. And because you're pushing it, that's why it's not working. And so you have to get into alignment with what it is that you're doing. So that's one of the reasons why it could potentially not work. However, I would suggest that most things that you're doing in your business aren't completely not working. It's just one part of the thing that you're doing that isn't working. And like I said, really successful people know this. So if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you want to learn this. You want to learn how to be in the messy middle without freaking out. You also want to learn how to understand when a strategy isn't working for you and what that means and what part of that strategy in specific isn't working for you so that you can know how to fix it so you can get your fruit, right? Because that's what we all want at the end of the day. We all want our fruit. So that's how to survive the messy middle. Trust yourself, trust what you're doing, trust the decisions that you're making, and definitely get yourself a mentor, get yourself a coach who's going to help you navigate all of these things because it's so much easier when you're doing it with someone by your side. All right, and that's it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I will catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarajloureiro.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.